Hey, check it out, Hammer fam. Welcome back to HammeredHead. Today we got another 30th anniversary collection figure, Clone Trooper Hawkbat Battalion. This guy was from the original Clone Wars animated series, which I've said before I'm not a huge fan of, but it did have a few cool aesthetics, this being one of them. I love the look of the poncho on this guy. He looks kind of beat up in the card back image there, sort of weathered down. It's a really intense look, which I love. And it looks like it translated pretty well on the figure. So I'm glad I finally picked this guy up. Get another coin, which is dope. And there's the screenshot from the show itself. This stuff looks pretty metal. Again, Clone Wars original, not my favorite, but it's got some good stuff in it. I'm not going to deny the quality. Clone Trooper Hawkbat Battalion. Fighting spreads from planet to planet as the war escalates. Clone troopers are sent wherever they are needed to oppose the separatist armies. Oblivious to harsh climates and imminent danger, each trooper prepares for another battle in this galactic conflict. Wow, so that really just said nothing about this particular battalion. Not a helpful write-up at all. Species, genetically modified human. Status, efficient military force. Weapons of choice, blaster rifle. Characteristic, bred and trained for war. Okay, so if I didn't know anything about this guy, that would not have helped. I guess as an introduction to basic Star Wars lore, maybe. Whatever. Figure looks dope. Let's open him up. Alright, there he is. He looks dope. Really like this guy already right out of the box. I think he looks fantastic. Stands up really well on his own. He's got a solid grip on the blaster. Peg holes are a little bit on the shorter side of things. It's not too bad, and they are right in the center of the foot, which is a little bit weird. Normally they're closer to the heel, but not a huge deal. But the figure itself, again, looks really great. It's a good sculpt for the clone. But this figure makes all of its money in sort of the weathering, and the poncho itself obviously is the coolest part. Again, it's a really good look. It's a nice material. The cut is a little bit weird. It's kind of like stitched in a few places that sort of give it its shape. So it's a little tough getting it into a good position that looks good. But it's even got some weathering on it on both sides. Overall, it fits him pretty well. I'm happy with it. And the blaster is a pretty standard one for the clones, but it is more of like a gunmetal metallic gray than the standard black we usually get. So I think it complements him really well. The helmet looks nice. It's a little different than normal. Maybe it's just on the more animated side of things. But it does pop off. Let's get a closer look at it. I think it's a pretty good sculpt, all things considered. Pretty finely detailed on the paint job. And then it's a pretty cool head sculpt underneath. Although, one thing, his eyes are red. I don't know, fill me in on the lore on this. Maybe this battalion just like hasn't slept in 2 weeks. But this dude looks like he's a Sith Lord. Other than that, though, the head sculpt is pretty good. Decent paintwork. The neck, it's not really coming out on camera, but the neck is actually like more pale than the face, which is kind of weird, but not a huge deal. And then once the helmet's off, we can pop the poncho off and see underneath. So you can see he's kind of yellowing a little bit. Not a whole lot, not a huge deal, because I'm going to keep him with the poncho on, of course. But just so you can see the sculpt. It's not the most intricate or highly detailed Clone Trooper sculpt. You can usually tell by the thermal detonator back here. You see it's like a giant chunk of plastic. Not super highly detailed. But the legs are really finely weathered. They got a lot of like mud and dirt and stuff on them, which really is what makes this trooper unique. And I think it's executed very well on him. Articulation is pretty solid. He's got a ball head, so not a crazy amount of up and down, but a decent amount. Then we got balls, shoulders, and elbows. Swivel wrists. Nothing in the waist, which is a little disappointing. But he's got swivel hips, ball knees, and ball ankles. So it's good enough for my standards. Only other accessory is the collector coin, which looks pretty cool. It says Hawkbat Battalion Clone Trooper. You can see him with the poncho on there. It's a really nice design. And it's a Clone Wars coin on the back. So this is a pretty cool one. At the end of the day, I think this figure is a winner, and you should definitely pick him up. I am personally not a fan of this series, but as a Star Wars fan, I can acknowledge a really good aesthetic on a clone trooper when I see one, and this guy checks all the boxes. Really great weathering. Poncho is a great touch. It's a decent sculpt. All around, just a great paint job, great figure. So I would say pick him up, whether you like that show or not. But let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you to my Patreon subscribers. Be sure to follow on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Check out the Patreon page. And don't forget, stay hammered.